Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from SimpleProgrammer.com. Have you ever had one of those days where you just keep on screwing it up? Oh man, I'm recording this video over because I had my camera plugged in. If I have it plugged in via the USB, which I use to transfer the videos off, then it creates this noise on the audio. Yeah, not fun. So anyway, I recorded a video talking about my trip. I'm actually back finally from my long European trip. You can check out some of the videos here, maybe some of the highlights of the trip. I did this long trip about 2 months, almost, 7 weeks, 7.5 weeks, where I went from Stockholm to Helsinki to Tallinn, Estonia, to Switzerland, all around Switzerland, and then to Rome, Italy, Cinque Terre, Italy, Florence area, Tuscany area in Italy, and then finally in Venice, and came back. And I had a whole fiasco coming back where I ended up missing a flight. I thought I'd give you sort of a quick, now that I'm doing this for basically the third time, it's going to be even more concise, but I thought I'd give you a quick sort of synopsis of how my trip went for those of you that are interested, some of the things that I learned from it, and just kind of my whole trip report here. So first of all, I already told you where I visited. It was definitely something that I learned here was that this trip was definitely the most exhausting of all the ones that I've done. 2 years ago, I went to Europe, and I did it for about 3.5 months, and it was less exhausting because I stayed in places for about 3 weeks at a time. This time I was moving all over the place, seeing a lot of sites, traveling all around the countries that I was visiting instead of staying in one place in one city, and that made it super exhausting to do it for that amount of time. So that's a lesson learned there. Last year I went to China, but I only went for 3 weeks, and I just was hitting locations, going crazy there, but it was a short duration. So a big takeaway, big lesson I've learned is that you either travel fast and hit it hard, okay? Well, three things, I think, 3 ways, and I'll do this in the future, is either travel fast and hit it hard, okay, or travel somewhere where you're just vacation, like, travel somewhere like a beach somewhere and just hang out there for 2 weeks where you won't be exhausted at all. It'll just be a total relaxation. Or the third alternative is to travel slow and long. So if you're going to travel for a large period of time, stay in a location, right? So I think the minimum that I'll ever stay in a location now for a long trip is 3 weeks, possibly 4 weeks, right? I might do a trip where I'd stay somewhere for a month or 2 months or something like that in the same spot, and that isn't nearly as exhausting. So I was exhausted by the end of this. I'm still probably a little jet lagged. Just got back a couple days ago, and getting back into the swing of things. But I am excited. I'm ready to start going again. As far as diet, nutrition, lifting and stuff, I ended up running pretty much. I ended up not missing a workout, which was awesome. That was phenomenal. I was a little bit worried about this, especially because I was going to a lot of different places where I'd be staying in a small place. I'm only staying for a day or 2 days, but somehow I figured it out. Every time I figured out where to run, I figured out a gym to go to. I even had to lift in a playground in Rome because all the gyms were closed. You can check out that video, but I eventually found a gym there. And sometimes I had to take train trips. Sometimes I had to do like crazy things to be able to get to the gym and work out, but I figured it out. I did it. So as far as workout and consistency, I get an A+, give myself an A+ there. As far as diet goes, I sort of had to shift my plan, right? Because when I got there and I realized what was going on, and I realized I was going to be going to Switzerland, and I'm going to Italy, and these are kind of experiences to go. You kind of go to some of these places for the food, although Switzerland not as much. I thought so, but at least the cheese and the chocolate. But so anyway, I figured out that I'm not going to stick to the 1 meal a day thing. And so I started going with the current instead of against it. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that, my metabolism's been slow from what I'm doing. So let me at least like make sure that I'm lifting heavy and getting in the gym and gaining some muscle mass. So I think I did. I think that was pretty successful. I have to give myself probably like a C on diet, but I did speed up my metabolism again. I came up, I think I left about 210 pounds. I'm weighing about 230 now, so maybe a 20-pound difference, not a huge amount, but a decent amount for me. So, but I think I gained some muscle, and I definitely revved up my metabolism, which was way slowing down. I can just tell, right? So that's good. As far as experience, being able to practice or use the Italian that I've been practicing for 5 months. That was a cool experience. I definitely recommend that to learn a language. If I were to do things over, right, if you're thinking about traveling and how you would travel the world, I've got some tips for you. One of them, like I said, is making the choice of those 3 ways to travel, either short in duration and hard, vacation travel exclusively where you're going to relax, because believe me, going somewhere for, traveling around Europe for a couple months is not relaxing in itself, or doing the long and slow. The other thing I'd say is, let's see, okay, upgrade your airfare if you can for international. Totally worth it, and you only need to upgrade to business class usually, and you're going to get first class treatment. What else was I going to say here? So as far as workouts, obviously planning them out ahead of time, and then there was something else I was gonna say about the travel aspect of it. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, but. You know what I was going to say? It says, 2 things. Okay, about the language. So the language part, if I were to do this, right, I would, especially if I'm traveling every year, I would learn a new language, or the language of at least one of the countries I'm going to be in, at least a little bit of it, at least, a few months worth of practice on it before going, because it did make the experience so much better. It was really cool being able to speak Italian in Italy, even though I'm not very good, but to be able to converse with people. I forced myself to speak in Italian. Like, people would speak English to me, and I'm like, fuck it, no. I'm not going to speak English to you. I'm speaking Italian, and I did it. Some people were actually like, just speak English. I'm like, no, I'm speaking Italian. So that was cool. That was definitely worth it, and I would recommend it. So, and imagine if you did this for like 10 years or so, and you kept on picking up different languages, or you focused and studied so that you could increase your proficiency. I know a lot of you that are in Europe are multilingual, but a lot of Americans aren't. And it kind of makes sense, right? At first I was like, I feel like a dumb American, I only speak one language. But in Europe, it makes a lot of sense often to speak different languages, because you're exposed to them. Whereas in the US, you're exposed to Spanish and English. That's it, pretty much. So there you go. So what else was I going to say about this? Oh yeah, so travel, the other thing I'd say is, okay, another thing that I kind of realized that I thought was kind of interesting is that you sort of have a diminishing returns on the experience of travel itself, especially visiting different countries. So when I first traveled the world and I visited maybe the first 5 countries or so, it's a very eye-opening experience. My perspective shifted, a lot of things changed, and it was very valuable as far as perspective for me. But this trip, some of it, there was still a lot of that, but not as much, right? So there's sort of a diminishing return. And I think in the future it'll be even more of a diminishing return. So I would definitely recommend going and visiting different parts of the world and spending some time in a lot of different countries, but to not focus on like checking off the list of every single country in the world to visit, right? Because I don't think there's a huge value in that. I think that the value is it's sort of this 80-20, the Pareto's law there, whereas 80% of the value is going to be the first 20% of the countries that you visit, right? Because you're going to get that perspective shift. So that's another thing I'd say there. And overall though, the whole trip was fun. It was exhausting, but I learned a lot. It was a good experience. It was cool to see a lot of the places in Italy, so much history. That was somewhere where I definitely wanted to go. I drove all around Switzerland, and it was cool to go to a place like Finland, where I never thought I'd go to, and Tallinn, which I hadn't even really heard of before, but was a really cool city. So it was a fun experience. It was definitely worth the trip, but I'm ready to get back to work and to get started. So there you go. That's all I got to say about that. If you have any questions, also I didn't end up doing all the meetups. I did a meetup in Stockholm. I did one in Switzerland and Bern, but I didn't end up doing them in Italy. I know some of you are disappointed, but it's just too much. I was just traveling too much, and it's a lot of coordination to set those things up. And since I was jumping all over the place to different locations, it just didn't make sense to me. So maybe next time I'll plan it more in advance, but with the book launch and everything, it was a bit of a hassle. So that's all I got for you today. Make sure you click the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you got some questions about the trip and travel and whatnot, leave them below. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.